Lots to let you hear that we haven't even really discussed yet. We gave you the Brian Windhorst talking about the Warriors definitely being in on the idea of Paul George and a 4-year max contract. Okay, there's that. But what about this? What if the Warriors do get Paul George and they bring Klay back? Bob Myers had this to say with regard to both of those players being Warriors this year.
So you add Paul George to the Warriors, and you say, okay, that's a really good team. You almost need Klay Thompson as well. I mean, the West, with what Oklahoma City is doing, what Minnesota is doing, with Ant-Man, with SGA, all these guys, what Dallas just did, I do think we're sometimes missing things and trying to oversimplify. Oh, you add Paul George, you add Klay Thompson. It's still not enough, guys. You need to build a team to compete with what is a loaded West. And even getting through the West, now the Eastern Conference showed they had the best team in the NBA. It wasn't that close, really. It was a 4-1 series against Dallas. But the thing that's different about the West is the depth of the West. You could be a very good team in the West and be the 9th seed. We talked just about Houston recently. Houston's trying to make the playoffs. The West goes, we talked about Phoenix. We talk about the Clippers still wanting to be good. We talk about the Lakers. We're still with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. It's a deep conference. So just getting through it all, you need depth. And Klay and PG may give you a better shot. But at the same time, I don't think either of them just solves all the issues for any team.
Okay, that's from Bob Myers on First Take on ESPN. You get Paul George, you can get Klay Thompson, still not enough. What do you think about that?
I think he's right. And it's not enough because you need probably 3 people. You need 3 players if you're going to, try to turn this thing around. And I look at Boston this year, and the big 3 idea is no longer a thing. You need to have more than a big 3. You need to have a big 6. And if the Warriors have Paul George and they have Steph, and let's just pretend that you don't have to get rid of Wiggins or Kuminga in all of this, then, yeah, maybe you've got enough depth at that point. If you bring back Klay and he's your 6th man, and your bench would be, Klay and Pods and TJD and GP2 and Looney. I do think that that's pretty sturdy, and that might be enough to be a competitive team in the West.
I think now's where the conversation goes to exactly where, where Larry Harris kind of brought it earlier today with regard to what's happening on the margins. You know what I mean? Like, I think if you were to do something like that, your core's in place. When you say that's not enough, it's not like, I don't think at least, that Bob is saying, no, you need Giannis also. Like, that's obviously not even doable. I don't even really know how Paul George and Klay Thompson are doable, as we have vehemently discussed so far today. So that's where you get to on the margins, and I think that's what Bob's talking about, some of the finer points of why the Warriors struggled. And Larry Harris said that, part of that is backcourt defense. Yes, they need a scoring big. He said it. I thought that was music to people's ears. We've been hearing that from fans for 2 years. Somebody who's tall. That's what I would like the Warriors to have. It doesn't need to be a star, but somebody who's tall. That would be really cool on the Warriors this year.
Well, they had it last year, and then for whatever reason,
not really.
Early in the year, Dario Saric was good.
No, I mean tall.
He's tall?
Tall. No,
he's 6'10".
No, anyway.
He is the kind of player, if he would have been the kind of player that they thought he was, that would have helped tremendously. A stretch 5 who can shoot the 3, but he got into a spot where he lost confidence. They lost confidence in him. He wasn't a great defender, and then he became a DNP machine.
But he plays smaller than that height. He's somebody who's spent almost his entire Warrior career behind the 3-point line. Like somebody who is going to have a presence down low and get some rebounds and be an option when you get late in the shot clock to toss the ball into that person and have them be able to create their shot. That would be a huge piece of the puzzle for the Warriors.
Well, you're hoping it's TJD to an extent, it's not going to be Kevon Looney. He offensively is not a guy you can throw it to late in the clock and have you get a bucket from him. It's been Kuminga in many ways, but now he's become much more of an all-court player, and he's not really a big at 6'7". He can elevate over people, but not a lot of teams have that player, and usually in free agency, that player's not out there. I mentioned Isaiah Hartenstein before, a guy who is with the Knicks and he had a good year. He shot 33% from the floor, from three rather, but he's a 7-footer, a guy who can score in a number of different levels, but he's probably going to be too expensive if he indeed goes out in free agency.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's not going to be on the table for the Warriors. Want to get to this as well, and this is from the Morning Roast this morning. Anthony Slater was in studio for a couple of hours, and there are a few comments he made that I think are very relevant to the conversation that you and I had earlier with regard to Klay Thompson. For those of you just joining us, here's how I'll summarize it. Dibs, you fire in if you think I'm missing anything. But the basic idea behind the conversation was, I have tremendous concerns about any reunion between the Warriors and Klay Thompson, because if it's to come together, I believe it to come together at a price that's not going to make Klay happy. And I don't want angry Klay back. I would love the emotionally sound Klay Thompson of 2 years ago to still be on the Warriors. But I have big reservations with regard to whether or not that's even possible. Because for him to come back to the Warriors, that means that the Warriors have gone through other priorities. It didn't actually work. He's clearly upset about that. He's unfollowing them on Instagram. But then it also means he went out to the free agent market and didn't find what he wanted to find out there either. So now you're going to bring him back to the Warriors, probably for a price that's less than what you offered him just 9 months ago, and he didn't even want that. It suggests to me that Klay would have a hard time being the sixth man, not getting the money and the respect that he wanted, and I think that angry Klay doesn't work. You need happy Klay. You need comfortable Klay if you're going to have him on the Warriors going forward. You have faith that he can find that. I have major reservations. Slates sat with Bonte and Joe and talked a lot about Klay and the relationship and his mental side. Let's start with 85, Grandy. Slates talks about how things got where they arrived between the Warriors and Klay.
Part of the reason it has gotten to as icy a point as it has is because what are the Warriors doing right now? They're not dealing with Klay Thompson. They're dealing with trying to get other stuff done. But Klay Thompson knows that. I think there is a part of Klay Thompson, and I would almost even say a large part of Klay Thompson, that is internally debating right now, like whether he just wants to leave, you know, regardless of money, years, this, that, like, and that's part of the story I put out last week was I think bringing that reality a little bit more to the public, that I think there's too much of this national perception, outside perception that, oh, maybe he's, you know, looking at a deal that he doesn't really like monies and years wise. And, you know, eventually maybe him and the Warriors will get back together. But both sides, of course, you know, would love for this reunion to happen. That's just not necessarily where it is right now. You know, I like, again, I do think it's possible it comes back together. There's a lot of conversations that will happen between, you know, now and let's say July 3rd, July 4th, whenever decision time does come. And there's a lot of moves or non-moves that the Warriors need to make that really impact the money and the situation that he would maybe be coming back to. But
okay, I'm really glad that we just got to that point, because did you hear what Anthony just said there? This idea that's being put out to the public that both sides really want this reunion. He said that's just not reality. That's not where we are right now. And so our conversation started, and again, I'll admit there's some semantics involved in it, but it's sort of like questioning whether, I get why the Warriors are saying what they're saying, but when they, oh, of course we want him back. Well, do you? Do you really? Like, do you really, really in your heart of hearts? Because if you did, you would have an offer on the table, and I think they freely have admitted, to the public that he's not option one. And if they did get Paul George, they probably can't afford Klay Thompson. So the transitive property, if you will, suggests that they actually, option one is not wanting Klay Thompson back.
Right.
It could get there, but it's not there now.
Option one for Klay Thompson is not coming back either.
Maybe.
Because he knows what the Warriors can approximately offer, and if he thinks that he can get more elsewhere, he's going to go elsewhere. And the thought's been out there that even if, and I think Anthony Slater was the one who said this, even if he has an equal offer from the Warriors and some other team, he'd be more likely to take that offer from the other team, because I do think that there are hard feelings on both sides, and particularly Klay. if he returned down 2 years and $48 million back in October, which is what the report has been, and it's not been refuted anywhere, so we take it as truth, and now the offer is maybe half of that, and even at that, if he's getting 14 a year coming off of making 42 a year, and he's going to be the sixth man, and his role is going to be limited, and you're going to bring in this shiny new object, and now you're option 5, I don't fault him for feeling some type of way. And if another team offers him 2 and 28, and the Warriors say, hey, we'll give you 2 and 28 to stay, if I'm Klay, I would be much more likely to go somewhere else and get a fresh start and get a feeling that that team wants me more than my own team, which has clearly put him on the back burner here in this process.
Okay, that's where you and I agree. Like, I don't fault Klay.
Yeah, of course.
For feeling some type of way if it all goes that way. My point is, if I'm the Warriors, sorry, I get that you feel some type of way. I also don't want you on the team anymore if you feel some type of way. I'm a big believer in this in all industry. You got to hire people who want to be there.
No doubt.
You got to re-sign people who want to be there. You know what I mean? Like, I know sometimes we go, like Brandon Ayuk. Oh, well, but he's under contract. I don't want Brandon on my team if he's literally walking up and down the sideline after the third down and 8. Oh, they only got 6 yards. Yeah, well, if the organization had taken care of me.
Right.
I mean, you want this crap on your sideline?
Or you don't want him complaining about catches and touches because he's in a contract year. I get that.
I don't want people who are going to essentially make everything, and I'm not suggesting that that's everything that's happened to this point. I don't want unhappy people. I don't want unhappy people. You're going to be unhappy sometimes, but if Klay's in a spot where this has just angered him to no end, well, then the Warriors should move on. Right. The Warriors should not offer him anything.
You and I differ as far as, how Klay will feel when it's important for him to start feeling a certain type of way. And if the best offer, or if the Warriors have an offer out there that is as good as another team and he chooses to stay, I do think that he would be willingly able to change his tune and come back and be the Warriors. I don't think that he would take a deal from the Warriors knowing full well that he's going to come back and be angry. I do think that where they've gotten from the end of the year to now, it feels much more broken than what we thought back in April when he went 0 against Sacramento, and the thought was, oh boy, it looks like they're going to move on from Klay, or Klay's going to get maybe $30 million a year. Bobby Marks on our very show talking about 30, and then you and I talked about 25. Feels like about the number for a guy who shoots it as well as Klay does. And now the reports this week are 13 to 15 a year. If I'm Klay, I'm feeling a lot of different ways. I'm feeling frustrated.
No doubt.
I'm feeling some regret over turning down 2 years and 48 back in October.
Well, that's the funny thing. I mean, the funny thing is he's so upset by the Warriors, and if the market is what we think it is, and we don't know that yet, but if the market is completely dry for Klay Thompson, then who's he mad at for the 2-year, 48 offer? You should actually come back to the Warriors and be like, thanks, that was actually a really nice offer. Is it still available? Sorry, no, it's not. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. All right, here's
first 2 picks are in, by the way, just to keep people up with the draft. Risa Shea went number 1 to Atlanta, and Alex Sarr goes number 2 to Washington. Okay. Alexandre Sarr. So we go back-to-back Frenchies. Look out, Team USA. Steve Kerr, you better be careful. Team France is coming for you in a month.
Worst draft of all time.
You don't know that.
Worst draft of...
And this is hypocrisy from you, because you always say, ask me in 3 years.
Because you think I said something I didn't just say.
You said worst draft ever.
I have no idea. These players could be amazing. This is boring. It's boring as hell that we are about to get names we've never heard of read to us.
You don't know Alexandre?
Get out of here. I mean, my gosh. This is
I've seen every dribble from... Checks notes, Alexandre Sarr.
This is like going to a graduation in a city where you don't live. We're just, right? Like, Billy Simpson. Good. I'm glad you... I'm like, who? What is this? Anyway. More from Slates. Grandy, give us number 86. This is Slater saying that he thinks that the Warriors and Klay breaking up might just be the right thing to do.
There is just a chance, particularly from the Klay side, that just a breakup is needed. A fresh start is needed. I would say it's leaning that way. Again, I don't want to go too definitive because things change this time of year. The situation can change. The money either on the market can change enough. The Warriors offer whatever that maybe it comes back together, but that is not the way it's trending.
Okay. Not trending in a good way.
Right.
Leaning toward a breakup just being the right thing to do, and very much suggesting that that's where Klay's head is, at least as far as Anthony can tell.
And as far as any of us can tell, because he unfollowed the Warriors and he scrubbed his feed of championship pictures of he and Draymond and Steph.
It's just like I'm almost apologetic that it didn't hit me until today. If that's where Klay is, why do any of us want him back? Why? Someone give me a good reason why, after watching this guy for 2 years, both on and off the court, seem nothing but disgruntled. As he declines, by the way, I still have the utmost respect for everything he achieved. I still wish that a happy Klay would have a spot on this team. But I can't, none of us can do anything about his mental state. And if this is truly how he feels, I don't even know why the Warriors would offer him $1.
Because he can shoot. And you're a team that relies on shooting. Not on this team.
No, find someone else. Find someone else who'll be happy to be here.
You're going to find somebody who is a 38.7% three-point shooter, a guy who can be a volume shooter. He can stroke it from distance. You don't have that on your team. You were a subpar shooting team outside of the chef.
That's why you trade for Paul George. He shot over 40% this year.
Didn't shoot as many threes as Klay Thompson.
By the way, nobody wanted you to shoot as many threes. I love when people are like, he made the most threes. Yeah, because he shot the most threes.
Yeah, that was always my bit.
And people were getting mad at him for gunning. Like you don't get credit for that. Just firing up too many threes. If you're one of the top percentage guys, that's good.
His percentage got better over the last couple of months of the year.
But it was low for him.
Yes, it was it his career low? No, 2 years earlier he shot 38.5, but one of only 2 years where he was under 40%. And that would be the reason why I, as a Golden State Warriors exec, would want him back, because it's a league of shooting and you don't have enough shooting.
Right.
And if you're going to rely on Kuminga and Pods and first quarter Draymond.
No.
Draymond was great in the first quarter. He could stroke it through 12 minutes.
I'm looking for shooting. I'm looking to acquire shooting.
It's not that easy.
No, it's not that easy. But again, I'm gonna take happy 37% instead of unhappy 38. I promise you that every single time. And speaking of unhappy, Grandy, go ahead and give us 87.
87,
This
Grandy.
is exactly what Slater said in addressing Klay Thompson's unhappiness last year.
For the right money, the right price, and the right mindset, that, if he came back, if the entire vibe is happier, I think they would. But it was an unhappy season for Klay Thompson last year. I mean, we all saw we can go through, blow by blow if you guys want to.
No,
but
we've done that already.
It wasn't that hidden what was happening. And him kind of coming to grips at this stage of his career. Obviously, the finances involved. I really think the lack of communication and motivation from the front office to get something done with him was, kind of looming over everything. There was a benching, there was, the closing time situations, again, stuff you all know. And it's just, I think part of what he's deciding right now is from a happiness perspective, from a mental health perspective. And we all know he really kind of dives deep into that and what is, will make him happy. I think he's deciding I think there's a lot of benefits to the Bay, benefits to the legendary status and living here, boats, all that. But there's also you might just want to go try something new.
I mean, the most important thing I thought that maybe he said all morning long was when he just mentioned the vibe. Would the Warriors want Klay Thompson back? Yeah, if the vibe's different. I mean, I could not agree more. It has to be different. That almost has to be part of the conversation. I think sometimes when we're dealing with free agency in sports, we always act like the team is just begging the player to come. Please pick us. Please pick us. Take our offer. This is the money we'll give you. Will you please accept us? In this particular case, I would do it very differently. Klay, we'd love to have you back, but you got to be Klay. You got to be the person you used to be. If you don't want to be here, we don't even need to have this conversation. We don't even need to talk about money. You decide right now if you want to be here. And if you want to be here, we can talk about a contract and everybody on the Warriors. You're going to show up with a common goal And this whole thing's going to be less about individuals. I mean, that's another thing that I don't even know why we never got to last year. Like, we can all understand why Klay's unhappy, but my goodness, that's a lot of individual behavior.
Yeah, we talked a lot about it early in the year when he was shot hunting and he was playing with that edge. And
it's selfish.
Playing angry, yeah, and it was a lot of it. And, you know, you could talk about Draymond Green playing selfishly in his own way, the way he was, you know, losing his temper. That's selfish behavior, not being able to control yourself and costing your team an entire month because you chose to lash out against opponents.
You say chose to. You're not wrong. It's selfish behavior, but it's a little bit less sort of targeted or purposeful. Draymond Green loses his cool because he has a hard time keeping his cool.
Well, the fact that he
Klay Thompson,
choke-dragged Rudy Gobert,
but
I would argue that was something that was unnecessary.
Of course it's unnecessary. However, if somebody's got anger issues, it's not under their control. That's the problem. The problem is he can't control himself. Klay Thompson knowingly decided, I'm going to go out there and prove to everybody I'm still Klay Thompson, and I am going to purposefully shoot shots that I shouldn't shoot so that you can all see that I'm still the same guy. It's a little bit less organic, is all I'm saying.